Hi everyone, so today we're looking at how do you handle the bipolar explosions that come out of a partner you're in a relationship with. They have what's called bipolar disorder. They've been diagnosed with that. This is a question from David. He says, how do I respond to my partner's aggression when, as a bipolar sufferer, she periodically explodes, taking her painful feelings out on me? I have strong boundaries on resisting abuse now, but these don't seem to foster a loving and deepening relationship.
Look, I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a medical doctor.
Right.
I barely have a BIMART
Right.
card. But I think that it's important we understand that the only way we can ever understand any other human being, in this instance my partner's rage,
Right.
by understanding my own. We're in a world where everything is apart from ourselves. So we have all the names of these psychological disorders.
Right.
Social anxiety disorder. I mean, it just goes on, and then it's inevitable that probably before there's a diagnosis for a psychological problem, there's a drug to treat it. And I don't want to get off onto that aspect of it, but I think it's important to understand, if I'm raging at anyone, I am apart from myself. My poles are divided. My mind is in such a place that I feel rage towards what I believe is someone who is not acting out what I want them to act out. So that no one becomes angry or inflamed without having what would be called a good reason for it.
Sure.
And what I would like to examine is there a good reason for rage? Because once I understand, if I'm rage, look, everybody knows this. The doctors will tell you, show me an angry man, I'll show you someone who's going to die 20 years ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Because it destroys us. Anger destroys the organism that instruments it. So the instrument would never voluntarily agree to its demise, yet there's something in the instrument, in the mind, in the body, that knows, in quotes, that someone is responsible for what I am feeling. And when you have a partner like that, in this instance, the person, Dave or whatever his name is, he begins to feel the brunt of this and wants to know what to do with it.
Right.
Just a couple other comments. My reaction to your rage is rage. My action when you abuse me, even if I don't see it, is to abuse you back, to punish you or otherwise point out where you don't understand what I'm going through, and then you've got this pattern. And the only way in which any of us are ever going to be free, it's not going to begin with our partner. They can help us. But what if I use those moments when my partner is flipping out? To see what it is in me that wants to flip out. Look, if I know that anger destroys me because I've seen it firsthand, I know that anger is destroying my partner. And if I know that anger is destroying my partner, I'm not going to cooperate with the destruction.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point to make very clear. So when we see anger in another person, our experience of it is that's not justified. That's the experience of it in the other person. When it's in us, it's absolutely justified because you've crossed over something that you don't understand. I know absolutely why I've just done what I did. I've done it for a good reason. The anger here is always justified. The anger in the other person is always wrong and off base.
Exactly.
But in no case does anybody actually understand what is the nature of anger. They don't connect the fact that after the explosion, they always end up in a back alley somewhere going, why did I do that again? I can't believe I did it again.
Right, that's right. Yeah, look, the point being that if in fact my partner attacks me, and I want to make very clear that no one should live with a partner who is consistently abusive. That's just, and if we do, we're enabling what we would call their bipolar condition.
Right.
Because it's just an attack back, a release, a compromise, and then a hope it won't happen again, and that just goes on and on.
And I mean, even that cycle includes celebrating when, everything's back.
Of course.
Again, and
you know,
all of it
sure,
strengthens that whole thing.
makeup sex. You know, it's never better after a big fight.
Right.
Because why? Because it's the antithesis of the violence. It seems to be love and everything's copacetic. But to the point, if I'm attacked by a person, I'm wrongly attacked. I can't see that they feel they've been wrongly attacked.
So I missed something there. You said when I'm attacked by somebody, I'm wrongly attacked.
Yeah, I feel as if the person's wrong to attack me.
Oh, I see.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can't see that the reason they're attacking me is because one way or another, they feel they've been wronged.
Right.
So what you got is two wrongs trying to make a right, to use an old expression.
Yeah.
Two wrongs never make a right. So if I get it, and I have to understand this is not drive-through psychology. Do I understand anytime I'm angry at somebody, I'm justified? Period, end of story. Or I wouldn't be angry at them. If someone's angry at me, I can't see they feel justified. Regardless of how I respond, they have seen something in me that's there or not, and they are attacking because they're in pain. Right. What happens if I understand that so thoroughly that when my partner comes at me, I realize the only thing I can do here is to bring an end to the story. Right. Not the continuation of the pattern, but by understanding the elements in the pattern to produce a deliberate end, by the way, where I wind up suffering my own anger because I'm not going to make my partner suffer more than she's already suffering.
Yeah, just to be clear on what you said there, a deliberate end, meaning an end of story, not necessarily a deliberate end of, we're going to stop this right now, a deliberate end to what's happening as far as my going along with that story in this whole exchange.
My partner's negative reaction produces the beginning of a runaway reaction in me. My runaway reaction to my partner's reaction spurs the reaction on further in them. And you get basically a cyclone, literally an atomic bomb that eventually goes off, and it has to. Instead, to understand, you know what? The reason my partner is the way they are right now, I don't have to think about it. I'm living it.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. And I understand that if I respond to a negative reaction with a negative reaction, there's going to be an explosion. And not only will nothing ever be reconciled, but we will each condition the other's unconscious nature to repeat and repeat and repeat so that nothing's resolved. On the other hand, and to the heart of relationship magic and all that we teach, if I can begin to grasp that my negative reaction is not going to bring an end to the problem as it promises, but rather is the continuation of the conflict, I can begin to deliberately suffer the appearance of this negative reaction in myself for the sake of understanding myself more clearly. Then I don't return unkindness for unkindness. And my partner is left seeing her unkindness that hasn't been validated and justified by my return of the same unkindness. Right. That's the only way that this can ever come to an end. It's not just you and your partner. It's you and the gas station attendant. It's you and the guy on the freeway. It's you and every other human being who, when for whatever reasons they feel that you have crossed a line, have nothing to do and know no better than to bring up this violence. Really, the violence brings them into it. And then to understand, if violence is going to end, it's going to have to end with me. God help me. And you'll understand the real meanings of that word.
Right.
It ends here, not because I'm strong, not because I'm wise, not because I'm brave, not even because I'm spiritual, but because I understand violence begets violence. Anger begets anger. And no anger, no violence will ever bring an end to itself through some proposed time in the future when the story will change. The story can only change when I change on the spot.
Right. So there's some key elements in everything that you've said here that, kind of bringing this all together. So one of the things that I think is so equalizing about what we study here. We're at your nonprofit foundation here in Southern Oregon right now, Life of Learning Foundation. So one of the things that I think is so equalizing is, these labels and these conditions that have been, in some cases, created
right.
to
describe behavior.
Right. Perhaps in a way that helps, perhaps in a way that's harmful. We won't go into that right now. But what we start to learn here is that, I talked to somebody who's been diagnosed with bipolar, and they describe to me what it is, and then I start to think, well, geez, that is something that actually happens to me personally, maybe not as severe as you're describing, but very similar. I can be going along just fine, and somebody cuts me off on the freeway, and a maniac is now driving my car.
Suddenly, I'm flipped out of one level of being, and another level of being takes over.
Right.
Bipolar,
Yep.
by person. And are you done? Because I want to say something.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So whether it's bipolar or whether it's addiction, same sort of thing. Everybody begins as we work here. I see that there is an addictive nature
right.
to this hobby or to this tendency to lash out or this tendency to whatever it is. So I see all of us are actually exhibiting the same thing. Some people get an official diagnosis.
And to my point is that some people, when the behavior is repeated and repeated and repeated, actually becomes a diagnosable condition.
Sure.
Where a brain scan would actually show that there is an imbalance between the hemispheres. And then you could say at that point, this person has a diagnosable disease called bipolar.
Right.
But to the point that I want to make is that can't be healed by a drug. It can't be changed by anything that nature does to validate itself. That nature changes when the conditions that nature lives in and that supports that position finally changes. So that if you're with a bipolar person and you fight with them, you're strengthening the bipolar part of themselves, which, by the way, came about because that nature, that mind, that level of development did not know what to do when the first anger came up.
Yeah.
Essentially. And so a schism starts, where the schism is, I'm this, and there's the anger over that. And that's never true. The anger belongs to a part of me that's resisting a condition that I don't know is revealing something to me about myself.
Right.
So that in this instance with this person and their partner, do you understand that every time that fight goes on and the anger is exchanged, you're not healing the person, you're further concealing the condition that they have come forward with. And it could heal. Mm-hmm. I'm convinced of this if it's not fed. Mm-hmm. Which is what it means to the unconscious reaction. I assume responsibility for it. I will suffer this nature in myself so that you don't have a reason to continue blaming me for what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, little by little, this physical schism, and it is, it's literally, you can see diagrams, I've seen them myself, MRIs or whatever they call them, scans, brain scans. Yeah, you can see it. The thing is broken up. Mm-hmm. It can come back together. It was broken up because it began with something the person in whom finally exhibits this did not understand. So if we want to understand and are willing to go through what that understanding leads us to, we can have a healing.
Right. Also, Carly, reminder to keep an eye on the clock for us too and give us some cues on time. What is that?
Let's wrap it up.
Oh, okay. Looks like we're done. So
it's an important discussion because we all, you even said it. Mm-hmm. I dropped my bowl of spaghetti. Mm. I'm sitting there getting ready to watch whatever I'm going to watch and have some good pasta, and my bowl goes on the floor, right. And out comes a lunatic. Mm-hmm. Now, which am I? The one who is at peace and going to enjoy the pasta, or the lunatic because the spaghetti's on the floor? And so not only don't I get to eat it, but I got to clean it up before I get to eat.
Right.
You see, so these are the things we're talking about. That happens enough times, you'll start blaming somebody else for you dropping the bowl.
Yeah. So as far as what does this person do in the moment of one of these explosions?
Yeah.
The first thing is I have to have some kind of insight into, the nuts and bolts of what makes this explosion in the
Right,
first place.
that's
And I
correct.
don't get that by studying it in that person.
Right.
I get it by studying the explosions in myself.
Present to my own self-punishing nature. And though we don't understand it, everything that we enact that's negative is first a self-punishing act, but that's hidden through the perception of the person being responsible for it.
Right. So once I begin to realize the nature of these explosions in myself, as you talked about, they can be healed, but only if I don't get into the fight with them of now I either have to fix the person or now I have to fix my own negative reaction. I can't get into either one of those fights.
That's right.
And instead of that, I have to stand there as this explosion rises up and do nothing in the face of it so I can learn more about what powers it.
There was a movie or a book, Witness to the Prosecution, very famous. We're going to be witness to the Punisher.
Yeah, right.
Because only by witnessing the Punisher
Right.
will we understand the person that's trying to punish us. And then we will enter into something completely new territory,
Totally, yep.
where the punishment ends because we understand nobody wins when we're trying to prove someone else is wrong.
Right, right. And then at that point, as far as to help David along,
Yeah.
it isn't so much something that he needs to know what's going to come out of this. At what point do I stop this relationship?
And you can't know. You can't know.
Right, right.
You live the truth that you understand. The more you live the truth that you understand, the more truth will show you things about your life that will eventually make everything quite clear to you. And it may be that through your actions you bring about a tremendous change, and it may be through your actions it accelerates the very thing in your partner. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be a whole, decent, kind, mindful human being.
Right, yep, that's great. So all of this that we've been talking about here today, components of it, elements of
Yes.
it, really the foundation of it is in this book, Relationship Magic. This is new from Guy Finley here, and this just came out a few months back, actually a few weeks back.
Yeah, a
only.
few weeks back, yeah.
So you can head over, if you want to learn more about this book, more about the kinds of things we've been discussing here on this video or past videos, you can head over to relationshipmagicbook.com. You can get this book. You can also, when you get it through that URL, through that website, you also get the free audiobook that Guy recorded.
Correct.
Where he basically, he read the whole book the way he wanted it read, the way he wanted it understood by the reader. So that's a great thing to have these two as a sort of a companion pack. Also, put some comments down if there were things here in the video that you had questions about, things that you like, things that you need a little more help understanding, or put topics that you'd like us to discuss in the future down in the comments so that we can really talk about the things that are front and center for people out there. So,
And I would just add a closing comment.
sure.
It is possible for a man or a woman to be completely healed of everything that now hurts them and those in their lives.
Right.
But the healing only begins with the revelation of what has been concealed in us. Once we understand what's concealed in us, we'll stop blaming others for what we say is hurting us, because we'll understand we're really quite the same in this. The more we understand ourselves, the better person we are for every other person in our life.
Yeah, and just one thing that I was going to say before until we decided to wrap it up, it's really the only hope a lot of people have is to come across one man or one woman, whether it's their spouse, their partner, just somebody they meet, who does not return unkindness with unkindness, so that the other person has a chance to finally get the full force of what they've always been, meaning the person who's angry or mad or upset. The only hope some people in that condition have is that somebody is going to be this perfectly still place that will receive the burden of everything that I've been, all of the anger that's in here, not return it, and then I'm left with just realizing, wow, this is actually me.
Then I'm left in front of a mirror that I see as me, not the person I blame.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Guy. Thanks, folks.